I'm an innocent man, Your Honor, and I have always been an innocent man.
We're back on the record in cause number 94-0D09328, State of Texas versus Daniel Villegas. The record should reflect the attorneys for the state, the attorneys for the accused. The accused are present in the courtroom. The court has received a message from the jury.
16-year-old Daniel Villegas was a high school student enjoying life with family in El Paso, Texas. He was arrested for capital murder and sentenced to life imprisonment. Villegas spent 23 years and 6 months in prison for an offense he did not commit. 4 teenagers who were walking home were shot by a man in the back of a car. 2 of them escaped, but Armando Lazo and Bobby England didn't survive. The officers investigating the crime coerced, threatened, and forced Villegas to sign a confession, even though he repeatedly denied the accusation. Villegas' first trial ended with a hung jury. However, in his second trial, he was found guilty and sentenced to life imprisonment. Villegas reports being abused physically and mentally by the guards.
If the defendant will please stand.
However, help came in 2018 when he was found innocent in a third trial and fully acquitted.
The State of Texas versus Daniel Villegas. Verdict Form B. We, the jury, find the defendant Daniel Villegas not guilty.
When the judge stated that Villegas was innocent, Villegas started crying and fell to his knees. His family also screamed in pure joy.
You are no longer under any conditions. You are free to leave. Thank you.
Villegas is seeking financial compensation for wrongful incarceration. In his petition, he mentioned how he missed the birth of his daughter and how the correctional officers abused him. Villegas is now sharing his story, has a Netflix documentary, and is working on getting other innocent inmates released.
I'm an innocent man, Your Honor, and I have always been an innocent man.
John Bunn was sent to prison at 14 for a crime he didn't commit. His journey to prison started in mid-1991 when 2 officers, Rolando Neischer and Robert Crossan, were shot in their car during a robbery. Unfortunately, Rolando didn't survive. The search for the killers began. Robert Crossan, the surviving officer, described the shooters as young, light-skinned black men. That was all New York Police Detective Louis N. Scarcella needed to apprehend Rosen Hargrave and John Bunn, 2 teenagers who were 17 and 14 years respectively. Even though these teens didn't fit the description, the detective didn't care. The situation worsened for the teenagers when Crossan identified them as the shooters in a photo lineup. That was how Hargrave and Bunn lost their freedom. By the end of 1992, Bunn and Hargrave were convicted of second-degree murder. Bunn spent more than 15 years in jail, but he never gave up fighting for his innocence. He spent 27 years wrongfully convicted before Detective Scarcella's habit of falsifying evidence was discovered. That prompted a series of retrials from people convicted based on his accusations. The first to get his conviction vacated was Hargrave in April 2015. Justice Simpson took into account the deceptive methods employed by Detective Scarcella in arresting the teenagers. Bunn, who has spent more than a decade on parole, had his conviction vacated in November of 2016. In May 2018, both Bunn and Hargraves were acquitted, and the cases against them were dismissed.
But y'all know that y'all convicted and had a wrong man in prison.
Bunn broke down in court crying when he heard that he had been exonerated.
I want to say thank you, Your Honor, because in 27 years, I've been fighting for my life.
It was an emotional moment with several people in court crying too. He tearfully thanked the judge for giving him his life back and reiterated his innocence. Bunn sued the city of New York and Detective Scarcella for malicious prosecution, denial of due process, and civil rights conspiracy. In 2020, the city finally settled for nearly $6 million.
Evidence didn't show that he murdered a prominent local rabbi in 1990.
David Ranto was another innocent person sent to prison for a murder he knew nothing about. Pascal Wurzberger, a Brooklyn rabbi, was murdered in February 1990 by a robber who stole his car to escape after robbing a jewelry store. Wurzberger was a Holocaust survivor, and his murder shook the Jewish community in Brooklyn. To speed up the investigation process and apprehend the murderer, New York Police Detective Louis Scarcella led the search for the culprit. However, investigations have revealed that Scarcella, now retired, repeatedly falsified evidence and spearheaded several investigations using false and misleading practices to obtain convictions.
That's ridiculous. That is totally ridiculous.
More than 20 convictions he obtained have been struck down due to extensive misconduct or inconsistent witnesses. He is the same detective that sought and got John Bunn and Roseanne Hargrave convicted for a murder they didn't commit. David Ranta was one of Scarcella's culprits, and through falsification of witnesses, he had Ranta picked from a photo lineup. In 2011, this false witness approached Ranta's lawyer and confessed that he wasn't sure of what he was doing at the time and even gave a sworn statement. This prompted investigations into Ranta's case and dozens of convictions spearheaded by Scarcella.
Sorry for what you have endured would be an understatement and grossly inadequate, but I say it to you anyway. Sir, you are free to go.
In May 2013, Ranta was finally released from prison and cleared of wrongdoing following investigations into the methods Scarcella employed to get his convictions. Unlike several innocent convicts, Ranta didn't cry. Instead, he thanked the judge and hugged his family with a big smile. Ranta was wrongly imprisoned for 22 years and was initially sentenced to 37.5 years to life imprisonment. He sued the city of New York and received $6.4 million in settlement. Luis Lorenzo Vargas was sentenced to 55 years to life on charges of rape, kidnapping, and sodomy by force in December 1999. He served 16 years in prison before gaining his freedom on November 23, 2015. Vargas filed strings of appeals between 1999 and 2002. However, none were successful until the California Innocence Project, a program dedicated to releasing convicted prisoners who were innocent, picked up his case and recommended that the DNA evidence be checked. The DNA evidence reveals that Vargas was not the teardrop rapist. The teardrop rapist was an unidentified attacker who assaulted and raped 3 women in 1999. He was referred to as the teardrop rapist because he had a teardrop tattoo and was of Hispanic origin. Police believe the criminal raped 39 women from 1995 to 2015. So, how is Vargas connected to this criminal? As a 13-year-old, young Vargas got a teardrop tattoo so that he could fit in with the neighborhood children. However, while Vargas's tattoo is faded and shows a single teardrop, witnesses reported that the rapist had 2 teardrops and they're prominent. The police didn't care about this, and Vargas was convicted. With the aid of the California Innocence Project,
innocent because the evidence will show that it undermines the prosecution's case.
Vargas was finally acquitted of all charges in November 2015. When he heard he was free, he cried and told his mom he loved her. He reportedly received $886,760 in compensation. Susan Mellon was sentenced to life imprisonment for the death of her ex-boyfriend. August 25, 1997 started like every normal day for Mellon, but it was the day that marked the beginning of her incarceration. Mellon, a mother of 3, took Jessica, her 9-year-old, to an eatery for a meal and was tackled and arrested for the murder of Richard Daley, her ex-boyfriend. That same year, she was convicted based only on witness testimony. The witness was June Patty, who died in 2006 and was notorious for providing false tips to the police. Mellon recalls being in denial and hoping they would come to her cell one day and inform her that she was free. Mellon's mother died while she was in prison, and Mellon believes she died of a broken heart. Mellon was sentenced to life imprisonment without parole for the death of Daley. She spent 17 years in prison, denied her kids love and warmth, and denied hugging and being with her grandchild. Even though she cried most nights in prison about the injustice meted out to her, she never lost faith and believed that she would be free one day. Mellon wrote to Deirdre O'Connor, a lawyer for Innocence Matters, pleading her case. With the help of O'Connor, Mellon was eventually released.
The judgment is vacated, the conviction is overturned, and as to Ms. Mellon, the case is dismissed.
When she heard she was a free woman, she shrieked and clapped her hands, then took a few dancing steps, hugged her kids, her attorney, O'Connor, and her grandchild, Aiden. She then took her daughter to McDonald's to get that Happy Meal they wanted before she was wrongfully arrested. She told reporters that she always knew she would be free one day and held no ill will towards the people who wrongly imprisoned her. She was awarded $597,200 as compensation by the state of California. Do you think that the compensation these innocent convicts received was enough? What would you do if you were finally released after years of wrongful imprisonment? Are you going to forgive them, or are you going to sue? Let me know what you think in the comments section.